Today, I'm taking some inexpensive thrift store finds and turning them into high-end home decor that's elegant and stylish. With a little creativity and some DIY magic, you can turn secondhand treasures into statement pieces for your home. And you can do it all on a budget. Hi there, welcome back to the Schwowin's Nest. I'm starting off with this wooden bowl that I got at the Goodwill for $3.49, although it was 50% off on that day. And this is my inspiration, these beaded wooden bowls that are white. They're beautiful. You can find them on different websites. This last one here is from Amazon, but $68 for a bowl, $118 for a bowl. There's absolutely no way on earth I'm going to be spending that kind of money when I know a little bit of paint can do wonders. You can probably see that it has been partially sanded, and I did start off with some acetone to try and get some of that stain off. It worked a little bit. I also was using my Rotary tool, but that just started to get really tiresome. So I decided instead I'm going to take this clay chalk paint and give it a couple of coats, and hopefully none of that dark color will seep through when I paint it white. I let that paint dry overnight, and now I'll be giving it almost 3 coats of white paint. I'm going to do the outside first, and then I'll start doing the inside. Then I went through my stash of beads and found all the little teeny tiny ones that I could. And because I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get all the way around the rim, I decided to start with north, south, east, and west, and then just eyeball the center of each gap. You'll see what I'm doing in a minute here. I'm also using some no nails because I want this to dry super hard and I want it to be a permanent hold. So I'm just using a little plastic knife, putting some onto the bowl and then pushing the bead right into place. Each time I add a bead, I'm going to be putting it in the midpoint of 2 beads. So as you can see here, I'm just eyeballing the midpoint of the space between these 2 beads and adding another bead. And I'm just going to continue that all the way around. Once I get even smaller, I'll still do the same thing. Eyeball the center of it or the midpoint and glue the bead on. And eventually I will have this all filled up. Both of my inspiration pieces had different sizes of beads, so it really depends just on the rim of your bowl. For this bowl, it had a very narrow rim, so these tiny little beads were perfect. So here's my bowl with all of the little tiny beads on. They're not 100% perfectly placed, but that's okay. This is a DIY project. It does not have to be perfect, but you do have to love it when you're done. I'm taking some spackling now. I like this Drydex brand, which is the pink that turns white when it's dry. Again, just using the little plastic knife and adding a little tiny bit of the spackling inside the top of each of the beads. This doesn't have to be perfect either. When the spackling was dry, I just used my finger and a paper towel to gently buff off any of the rough edges. I didn't want to use some sandpaper because I was afraid that if I pushed a little too hard, that maybe I would knock some of the beads off. But I have to say, they are stuck on there really well. To make the painting of the beads go a little bit quicker, I first gave them a quick spray of white chalk paint, and that just helped so I didn't have to spend so much time painting these tiny little beads. Then all I had to do was take a small brush and just go over them very roughly and in between them just to do some touch-ups. Then I also did a couple more coats of the white on the inside of the bowl to give it a really nice, crisp look. This is how I styled the bowl, and I think it looks beautiful. Today's video is in collaboration with my best friend in real life and on YouTube, DIYs with Sonja. Sonja really knows how to take a thrift store find and turn it into a high-end decor piece. Pottery Barn, Crate and Barrel, you name it, she can dupe it. So if you're looking for budget-friendly, really elegant and stylish decor ideas, head on over to my description box, click on the link to her video and her channel, show her some love, and tell her I sent you. This is a board that I used for the Christmas holidays. I had this hanging outside, and I'm going to repurpose it for a project that I have been wanting to do for a really long time. This is my inspiration. I've always wanted one of these trays over my tub, and this one is for $130 on Etsy. I know it's a handmade item, so I understand the price of it. It's really not that hard to take a piece of wood and add a couple of handles to it. The first thing I needed to do was sand it all down nice and smooth. This is a piece of old barnwood, so it's got a lot of little slivers and stuff in it. I'm using some 80 grit sandpaper with this sanding block, and I'm just going to go to town. This wood is super soft, so it was very easy to get it smooth really quickly. The first thing I did was cover up all the painted areas on this side with a couple of coats of brown chalk paint. I didn't make it perfect. You're not going to see it. I'm also taking some of these actual Jenga blocks, which are the large tumbling tower blocks, and I'm going to be gluing two pieces on each side, and then I'm going to do a double up. So I'll do two more on top of each. I've measured out what size I need for the sides of the tub. So on this side, it's about 2.5 inches. On the other side, it's about 3 3/4 inches. And that's to ensure that my board doesn't fall off into the tub. Using the same color of chalk paint, I'll give these wooden blocks a couple of coats too. The paint I'm using is from Rust-Oleum. It's their chalk paint and it's called Cocoa Bean. I have two silver rounded handles that I got from the thrift store. I'm giving them a couple of coats of satin black by Rust-Oleum, and this is just something you can pick up at any hardware store. I'm going to let them dry and then turn them over and do the underside as well. I want to just add a stain to the board. So this is a water-based homemade stain that I use all the time. I keep it in this little bottle, and it's just a combination of some browns like burnt umber, a little bit of gray, some black, and some water. And these are all just acrylic paints. Now, this ended up being a little bit deeper in color than I was expecting. I guess I just forgot that this board is so old that it just soaked everything up and it ended up being more of a solid brown color. When you look close, you can still see some of the wood grain poking through, but it really turned out more of a dark brown that I wanted it to. So next time I will have to make sure to have more water than less color in my stain. I did use a paper towel to wipe up any of the excess. And in hindsight, I probably could have used something like a baby wipe as well, just to kind of get back to a little bit more of the rustic wood. But I'm still really happy with how it turned out. I'm using the no nails again, and I'm just going to be adding a little bit to the bottom of each of the handles, and then I'll just push them in place where I need them to be. Again, I am just eyeballing this. I am not about the perfection in my decor. So if something is just a little bit off, I'm okay with that. But by all means, if you need it to be exact, then go ahead and grab your measuring tape and do what you got to do. Now you can see that there is a little bit of the glue sticking out, but once it was dry, this is so easy just to clean up with one of those little poking tools from the Dollar Tree, and I'll show you that here in a sec. I let the no nails dry for a couple of hours and then came in with this Dollar Tree scoring tool and very gently just pried off the glue. It wasn't difficult to do at all. Since this is going to be in a bathroom where there's lots of moisture and humidity, I'm giving it a couple of coats of some varathane. Now, this is an oil-based varathane, so that's why I'm using a sponge brush, because that's something that I can just toss. This is a gloss, but again, this wood is just soaking everything in that I didn't get any shine at all. It ends up being a matte look. I might at some point give it a couple more coats because I would like to see a little bit of some shine come through. It would also make it a lot easier to wipe it down and keep it clean if there was a little bit of a slick surface on it. But I have to say, even with the little glitches in this project, I'm really happy with how it turned out. I finally got myself a bathtub tray and I can't wait to use it. Okay, so I think I've had this pot in my stash in my home for years and years and years. There was a time when purple was all the rage for me, and I guess I just never did anything with this pot. So the first thing I'm doing is just giving it a spray of matte clear coat by Rust-Oleum, and that is simply just to help the chalk paint stick because this is a really slick surface. Next, it's going to get a couple of coats of this medium gray chalk paint, and I'm going to do the inside probably just about a third of the way down, or maybe just that top rim, because you won't really see anything else once I'm finished. This is my inspiration piece. It's a concrete pot from Pottery Barn. It's listed at $199, and this one is the small version. It's about 8 inches in diameter. To achieve that concrete look, I'm starting off with a beige color, and I'm going to be using this stippling brush and putting that color on, not all over the whole thing. I want it to look like it's been more weathered in some areas than in the others. So a little bit here, a little bit there, just sort of a random pattern. I'm taking the same brush that has not been washed out and I'm dipping it very lightly into the original gray paint. This is going to give me a third color that I can work with, and I'm going to be stippling this on everywhere there isn't any paint yet. So the dark gray paint is going to get this. I have a little bit of the beige paint out as well because sometimes I'm going to need to reload my brush with the beige and the gray so I can continue with this color. There is a little bit of a trick to getting all of these colors and textures blended in such a way that they look naturally weathered. And that is just blending, 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 going over it and over it and over it until you achieve the look that you would like to have. So as you can see here, I'm taking some of the gray and I'm going on top of the beige paint now. And that is going to then blend it in a little bit more. You're still going to see that difference in color, but it's just going to be a little bit more subtle. I worked on this for probably a good 30 minutes to maybe even 45 minutes until I got the look that I wanted. Here, I'm almost getting to the end of what I want to achieve with this. I love how all the layered colors and textures are coming together to make this look like a naturally weathered concrete pot. And you know what the best part is? I didn't have to spend $199 to get it. Now that I have the pot, I need to put something in it. One thing that I like to do is before I even decide on a project, I look through my stash of supplies and see if I've got something that will work. And this did. I have these fern fronds here and I've had them for a while. They're really bright, bright green. And I know that ferns are a lighter green color, but I wanted something a little bit darker. I'm just taking some dark green that I added a little bit of black to just to deepen it up. And I'm just using a little sponge brush and going through all of these little greenery stems, front and back, and then I'm going to set them aside to dry. Since I already had some fern branches, I decided to look around and see what I could dupe. And this was a $98 potted fern from Pottery Barn. And I knew I could make this myself. I'm using my rotary tool with a small drill bit to take this branch, which I'm going to use for the stem of my fern plant, and I'm just going to be drilling in some larger holes so I can add these extra little twigs and branches. I have found that using hot glue works the best for projects like these. And if you can get a glue gun that has two different temperatures, I'm using this on the low temperature because it has a less setting time. So it sets up a little bit quicker and then lets you get through your project a little bit faster. In the spaces like this, where my little twig is smaller than the branch, I added some extra hot glue. Not to worry, we're going to go through this at the end with some brown paint and just fix it up. For the new little fronds that are coming out of the plant, I'm using these chenille stems and I'm giving them a bit of a haircut. I wanted to just get some of that chenille off a little bit so it wasn't quite so thick. Then I'm simply going to round out the top of it. They're going to look like fiddleheads and then give them a little bit of a paint job to make them look more brown with a little touch of green. To put everything together, I'm going to be starting with the fronds. I already have those glued in place where I want them to be. And now I'm going to be using hot glue to add these smaller leaves to create one larger leaf. Here's the first one done, and I think it's looking pretty good so far. As I was gluing all of this together, I decided that it probably would have been so much easier if I would have added the leaves onto the wood stems first and then created the tree portion of it. So if you decide to create something like this, learn from my mistake. It was a little tough having to work around all of these different branches and twigs, putting the leaves on with the glue. I made it work, but I think I would probably do it the other way next time. I put a whole bunch of floral foam into the pot, and now I'm just going to be pushing that wood stem right into the center of it. And I'm going to push it all the way down because I have foam all the way down towards the bottom, and that's going to hold this nice and sturdy. The final touch for the tree itself is just to cover up all of the hot glue with some brown paint. I found a paint that is very similar to the original trunk here, sort of a reddish brown, and that's blending in perfectly. I'll be using reindeer moss from the Dollar Tree to cover up all of the floral foam. To keep it in place, instead of using hot glue, I'm going to take little pieces of wire, cut them into about 3-inch pieces, and then bend them into a U shape. And this will give me the ability to push it right into the reindeer moss and into the floral foam. So all I have to do if I want to replace this at some point is just pull it all apart. It always feels so good to create something myself that looks beautiful, and I didn't have to spend an arm and a leg to get it. I hope you love this tree as much as I do. When I see inexpensive baskets that are huge from the thrift store, I snap them up. I grabbed this one a little hastily. It does have a tiny little bit of damage, but I'm going to be cleaning that up just with a pair of scissors. This is actually a laundry hamper size. It looks a little deceiving when the picture, but this is the inspiration for this project. This Pottery Barn tote basket retails with an extra large size of 29 inches for $212. Now, mind you, it is beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. And would I love to have this in my home? Absolutely, but not at that price. So let's make this one look like that one. To create this look, I'm going to start off by using a little spritz of my water mister just to help the paint slide a little bit better. I'm also using the Rust-Oleum chalk paint in Cocoa Bean, which is what I used for my bathtub tray. But the color looks totally different here. On the bathtub tray, it absorbed and got really dark, but on this, you can see a lot of different texture and color coming through. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. This is the color that I was dreaming of when I got this basket. I'll continue just misting the basket very lightly and then going over it with the chalk paint. If you wanted a deeper color, you could go over it with a second coat. I was quite happy with how it turned out. I think this would also look really good with a gray stain or maybe even more of a natural rattan look stain. I think all of those would be beautiful. Once I had the outside of the basket completely done, I left it to dry overnight, and now I'm coming back to do the inside the exact same way, just with the mister and the chalk paint. Although my basket is a little bit of a different shape, I wanted to create the same type of handles that were on the inspiration piece. So I have three pieces of jute rope here, and I'm just going to tie them together, tape them to my desk, and then start braiding them. I thought that would be a really nice look, more elegant, more high end, and I wanted to just create some really sturdy handles that wouldn't flop over. So braiding them together made it really nice and strong. This is just a normal 3-strand braid. You're always going to be crossing the outer one on top of the inner one. So you go from the outside, bring it over to the middle, and then the outside over to the middle again. I cut the braid into about 6 or 7 inch sections, and now I'm just starting on the inside and gluing the first piece down. I made sure the handle was standing up a good 3 inches above the top of the basket, then cut the braid and glued it in place. I also added some hot glue to the end where I cut it just to ensure that it wouldn't unravel. I did the same thing for the handle on the other side, and this is a better view for you to see it. Unfortunately, it's not going to get very focused, but I still think you can probably get the idea of what I'm doing. Now that I had the handles on it, I didn't really like the holes still there. So I took more of the jute rope and I just glued it to itself and covered up that hole. I did the same thing for the inside. And for the last touch, I decided to take my paint one more time and I just painted the jute rope that was underneath here covering the hole. I left the handles, the braided handles, the jute color, and I think this basket turned out pretty nice. You'll have to let me know what you think. Would you have done the handles this way? Would you have covered up these holes? Let me know what kind of ideas you have for creating these types of handles. If you love seeing how you can create high-end decor on a minimal budget, then make sure you stick around by hitting that subscribe button, the notification bell, and hit that like button if you like this video. Thank you so much for spending some of your time with me today. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. Here's a couple other videos that might interest you too. Bye for now.